Hello, everyone. Today is Tuesday, November the 11th, Remembrance Day, a day to reflect on what we have now and what we could have not have, or what we did have. Well, what we did have was a country that we did a lot for, each and every one of us, and unfortunately, in a good way, right? There was mistakes that were made along the way. I think we can all agree that there was a lot of mistakes that were made along the way. And then the World War came through, World War I, World War II. A lot of people lost their lives to fight for what we have today. I can relate to that. I can reflect on that. Personally, I lost my grandma in the World War, and her daughter, which she survived, and my mom went through the World War. She was just a little girl, though. Just a little girl, and she left school to go and actually help. And her mother told her not to do that. She told her not to do that because she didn't want to see another lost loved one in the family. But my mom did, and she did survive. She then went with her family and came over to Canada. And on World War ships that were out there, my mom managed to get through on a ship, and right in between two ships. And she said she would never forget in her life what she would hear. She would hear torpedoes, and it would shudder the ship. The ship would rock back and forth, but it was in between two other ships. And I guess my message I want to give to people is today is, lest we forget of our fallen soldiers, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents who fought for what we have today. I'm not an expert, and I'm not here to school people of what you should know and what you shouldn't know, of the rights and wrongs of how do we treat each other in society. But what I can say is, it's about respect and dignity, and having the autonomy of making the decisions that are best for you as a person, and try your best to get along with people the best way you can in your life, because when they're gone, they're gone. You can say, I wish I could have said this, and I wish I could have said that, or I wish I wouldn't have said this, and I wish I wouldn't have said that, because life's too short. We have to enjoy life the best way we can and make the best of what we can for people and loved ones around us. Because you can say, well, I maybe I should have spent more time with that loved one. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, didn't do. I can look back and remember my grandma spending time when I was just a little kid, going over to grandma's and grandpa's place. They fought in the World War, and the stories. I mean, we learn from our elders. We learn from people who fought, or maybe they didn't fight, or maybe people in families did. One way or another, they're connected to people who did fight in the world wars. I mean, I think people just want to be happy, right? And look back at what we have now, and what we have now, because what people fought for what we have now. And I always cherish great memories. I really do. I look back and my mom would tell me stories, my grandma, like I said, and I would compare about sacrifices of what they had to do growing up. And I think the younger generation, we need to carry that on. The legacy. Canada became what Canada is now, but can we continue Canada, make Canada a better place? Um, I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, Canada, I always thought was this great country. We take care of each other, we take care of our citizens. What happened? Like the way I look at it now is I look at it, it's more of a political decisions than anything. And it doesn't have to be that way. The learning lesson is just enjoy what you have and appreciate what you have. But learning of the stories that have been taught to me over time. Um, I worked in a seniors home many decades ago, and the stories. I mean, I brought them their breakfast, lunch, not dinner because I was already gone by then, but out of there. But for a short period of time, I did that. I enjoyed it um, because I enjoyed hearing the stories that people would share, the seniors, what they had to sacrifice. I think we need to take care of each other and learn from the lessons of the past. War has no good outcome to it.
Just a full disclosure, uh, we are recording this episode as a pre-record on November 10th. So just full disclosure, because there's no secrets.
Yeah.
Even though our next episode is all about uncovering secrets.
Yeah.
So we're doing this Remembrance Day episode as a separate thing because I wanted to acknowledge it because it's important, and I didn't want to overstuff the episode we're gonna do later after this.
Mhm.
So we're gonna do a episode after this all about going back in the time machine and uncovering government secrets. But I wanted to honor what tomorrow is by making sure we do today.
Mhm.
And like I had a granddad too that served in the war, and I had an uncle that served in the war, and you know I always think about like I you know unfortunately there's so many people that are dead now, of course, like
Right.
even the people that served in the Second World War, most
Mhm.
of them are dead because if they served when they were like 19, 20 or thereabouts, they'd have to be over 100 years old now.
Mhm.
So there are a few people that are over 100 that are still alive that are veterans, but they are dying off, and so unfortunately those stories are dying off, and that's a really sad thing.
That's why we need to carry forward their legacy.
Yeah, and I so again I just wanted to acknowledge that you know our country is great because of the shoulders that you know of other people's shoulders that came before us. You know,
Mhm.
every one of us is standing on the shoulders of somebody else, and standing on the shoulders of people that have died.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get all religious necessarily, but I did want to say, I think everybody knows about the story of Cain and Abel, right? In Genesis, you have Cain, you have the two brothers of Cain and Abel, and Cain got jealous, and so he killed his brother Abel, and then God kind of says, well, what did you do, Cain? And he kind of says, well, or God says, like, where's your brother? And he says, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Like, because but he knew that God knew that what he
Yeah.
had done, right? And then God basically said, your brother is crying out from the graves, right? Your brother is crying out from the grave, and we have to remember that there's so many people that have died in World War I, World War II, other wars, that they're crying out from the graves, and all these people, they fought for freedom because freedom mattered. They fought for democracy because democracy matters. And I don't want to crap all over government, but it seems like there's so many government policies now that it's like, I don't know, it's just like all these people that fought for freedom, fought for a good life, that came to Canada for a good life, and it's like, it's like, does it even matter anymore? Does it even matter that people fought and died?
Yeah.
And like I said, I always remember that it's important to me because, like I remember, again, I don't want to get too off topic, but I remember when I was younger, I would, people would come up to me when I was like, 7 and 8 on crutches and stuff, and they would say, "Oh, I feel so sorry for you. I feel so," and it's like, why? It's like, I have a good life, and even though I'm disabled, I was always aware that I've had a really, really, really good life. And again, I have had a really good life because I've had good parents, but again, it's because we've all stood on the shoulders of all the people that have come before us and fought for freedom and actually died for their country. Like they actually did the ultimate sacrifice. And of course, I've never had to die for my country, and you've never had to die for your country. And our Prime Minister has never had to die for his country, and David Eby has never had to die for his country. And I think it's important that we have so much back and forth of like kind of toxic politics, like
I was mentioning.
Like I wanted to almost do a show about toxic politics, about wedge politics, and I thought, well, it's just going to be another show of like ganging up on Eby, and I don't necessarily want to do that. So instead of doing that, I just wanted to do a quick episode where we're honoring the people that came before and made this country great.
Exactly.
And it just seems like now, like we have politicians that don't want to even acknowledge. They almost don't even want to acknowledge. They want to apologize for, like, how there's that saying that all's fair in love and war, right? And the irony of that saying is when you say all's fair in love and war, you're really meaning that nothing's fair in love and war, right?
I remember my mom telling me. I'm glad you mentioned about the sacrifices, and one thing I can share with our audience is my mom made it to grade 7. That's as far as she made it. She had to leave school to go and fight in the war, to go in and help. She helped where she could, and she saw a lot. She learned a lot, and she said, "Never again." Like, never again. But she was proud. She was proud to do what she did, because that was her part in helping to make things better, the best way she could under the situation. She said there was a lot of scary times, and then going through the time era of the time machine, shall I call it? That's what we call it, the time machine.
Yeah.
Of looking back, like, well, I would say, well, what did you go through? And she said times were so tough. She went along and picked up coal off the railroad tracks, so they could heat up their homes. And I went, oh my gosh. She was right. So people should be very appreciative of what they have now, because things were not good way back when. Sonia's grandma, she talked to us about the Great Depression. God rest her soul. But she would tell us stories about, of how things were. Not into major depth, but it was almost like around the same time era, almost the same time era as my mom. So God rest their souls, and it was really nice to know them in life, and they'll always, the cherished memories are always going to be up here. And I miss all the loved ones in my life that that were part of my life directly, but they're still in my heart. They're still in my heart, and spending time around them, and that was the best part. Right, is spending the time and hearing their stories of the legacy of what they went through over the time era, and teaching us now of being appreciative of what we have,
Yeah.
because times were, times were never easy back then. I mean, I would tell the story of what you used to be able to buy with so much, and the value now it
Yeah.
has depleted down so much. And again, that's all political.
But
It's all decisions.
well, you know what, Brent, we do have to punch out.
Okay.
But I did want to just finish off by saying, again, there was a reason why we divided up today, because I wanted to honor what today, well, actually what tomorrow is,
Yeah.
because we're
Yeah.
recording this on November 10th, but I wanted to honor what Remembrance Day is tomorrow, because
Yeah.
we'll release this video tomorrow on the 11th. But also, I wanted to acknowledge as well that this is actually can almost be considered a companion piece, because again, we could have made a big, huge, long episode, and we could have thrown all of this into one episode. But I really, like I said, I wanted to divide it up.
It would have been a long episode.
Yeah, it would have been a long episode.
Oh, yeah.
But the episode we're going to run in a couple of minutes here.
Yeah.
Is going to be, like we said, about going back in time into the time machine, Back to the Future, driving 88 miles an hour,
And you could see some serious.
yeah, and and it's about, like I said, like honoring what came before, and
Yes.
I think a lot of our politicians now kind of want to rip Canada and rip BC down to the studs. And say, well, let's do a mulligan. I think everybody knows what a mulligan is. Like in golf, like when you do a mistake, it's like, oh, mulligan, let's do a do-over. And it's like, like there comes a point in time when you can't do do-overs anymore. Like that's another thing I wanted to say too, is like we've talked before, is when you walk through a door, sometimes you'll never be able to walk back through that door. Like once you walk through the door closes. And there's no going back through that same door again sometimes, right? Like, unfortunately, life goes on.
It does.
And you just have to live with your mistakes, no matter how grievous those mistakes are. No matter how grievous those mistakes are, you just have to live with your mistakes. But again, we do have to punch out, because we're doing another podcast in just a few minutes. But so anyway, let's end this one, and we'll start the other one.
Yeah, so I threw people off at the beginning. I said, well, today is November the 11th. And so you'll understand as you listen into the podcast, then you'll understand about it.
Yeah, like we don't even know necessarily what we're talking about, or where the next podcast is going to go.
Exactly.
But again,
stay tuned on that one.
Think of this one that we're going to release tomorrow. Think of this one as a companion piece for the main one about the going back to the future, or and going through the timeline of secrecy in government. Yeah.
Let's take a moment of silence, everyone, on Remembrance Day, to reflect on why Remembrance Day is why Remembrance Day is. And thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned to our next podcast. Take care, everyone.